I don't know, Gebelin, I don't know, of Paris announced that he had fathomed the secret. Dighton Rock commemorated the visit to Massachusetts in very ancient times of a shipload of seamen from Carthage who lived for a while on Mount Hope Bay and established friendly relations with the Indians there. The drawings on the rock, de Gebelin explained, portray the leaders of the expedition consulting an oracle in order to select an auspicious moment for the perilous voyage back to Carthage. Bold claim. Bold claim, Senor from Paris. In 1807, Samuel Harris Jr., a Harvard scholar, declared that he was able to decipher on the face of the rock 3 ancient Hebrew words in Phoenician letters: king, priest, and idol. It was the inspiration for American Idol, the artist priest, and Burger King. None of that was true. All right, back to the article. I apologize. In 1831, Ira Hill, a Maryland schoolteacher, concluded that the rock was engraved in the 2nd month of the 10th year of the reign King Solomon by an expedition of Tyrians and Jews, such as one described in the Old Testament. 1 Kings 9. Is that it? I'm not sure. And King Solomon made a navy of ships in Eisengeber. I don't know how to say that name. I can't read. By the way, I have a reading ability of like a 4-year-old alpaca. And Hiram sent the navies, his servants, shipmen that had knowledge of the sea, with his servants of Solomon. And they came to Ophir and fetched thence gold for 420 talents and brought it to King Solomon. Of course, I don't know. That was really hard for me to read in the first place. I'm not going to try to read it again. The drawings on the rock Hill firmly believed mapped in detail the voyage from the Eastern Mediterranean through the Pillars of Hercules, past the Canary Islands, and across the Atlantic to Assonet. Well, of course, that's very possible. For all the people that don't think there was ancient sailors, well, you're wrong. There's an immense amount of evidence that people crossed all types of places. They just didn't do it in any type of way that had a major effect of biological change and stuff until much later. Having said that, be careful of scientists to say that's impossible, historians. Meanwhile, everyone knows that giant islands of monkeys were able to break off the western side of Africa and get to South America and populate South America with monkeys. So if monkeys could do it, I think we could do it. And King Solomon, anyway, sorry. Underlying such nonsense are lower solid facts. I don't know what that word is either. Here we go. This is the bottom line about this whole thing, and I'll shut up and stop trying to read. I faked my way through this. I guess what all these words are. I don't know what any of them mean. Dighton Rock, unlike some dubious, more recently discovered written rocks, cannot be a modern forgery. It shows some trace of vandalism, the initials of Taurus, for example, and an inscription reading perhaps Injun Trail to Spring Swamp, yards 167. But the bulk of the writings cannot be similarly explained. The Reverend John Danforth made a sketch of the marks engraved in the rock in October 1680. This sketch has been preserved in the British Museum. A comparison of Danforth's sketch with the appearance of the rock today leaves no room for doubt that the inscription Danforth saw in 1680 is still there. And the lines on the rock were carved by human hands. They are not mere cracks or products of freezing or weathering. Scientifically proven. If the marks are just doodles casually carved by Indians who had nothing better to do, they are surely among the most creative and laborious of doodles discovered in all of the area. Even with modern steel chisels, it would take many hours, even days, to duplicate the inscription. The rock is partly submerged much of the time, so the doodler might have to stand in salt water up to their knees or waist. More convenient rocks were available for casual doodling, much closer place. Anyways, the message is blazoned on the offshore surface of the rock, facing the water, and the rock itself stands at a point where it would be conspicuous to any small vessel exploring the coast or putting into the Taunton River for fresh water. Through the centuries, therefore, most speculation has sought to interpret the carvings as a message left by visitors to the coast, indeed to catch the eye of subsequent maritime explorers passing that time. The most influential all the theories clustering about the rock was one published in 1837 by Danish scholar Carl Christian Rein. Rein had spent many years poring over the Icelandic manuscripts that told of early Viking Christian reign. And Rein himself had spent many years poring through this one specifically. It was he who unearthed the now familiar story of Leif the Lucky in his voyage in the year 1000 AD to the three North American regions called Helluland, Markland, and Vinland. And some guy named Raffin, sure, also came upon the saga of Thorfinn Karselin, who 7 years later sailed even further southward along the North American coast to a place called Hop. Thorfinn was accompanied by a bunch of other people. I'm not going to read the rest of it. But the point is that the before we get into this stuff, the point is that this rock has been noted because of its location by basically every major exploration expedition that ever came this way. I'm sure you know a little bit of history, right? And we all kind of do. You got St. Augustine, Florida, by the Spaniards. You've got the place up there by the Vikings in Newfoundland. And you have a bunch of other random explorers coming through, and obviously Jamestown, and then eventually the Puritans. But many explorers came through this way. A lot of historians cannot explain this at all. They don't understand why this was there. I mean, look at this thing real quick. Just miles from where that rock was carved by a bunch of different languages, including Portuguese. This thing, the first thing the historians claimed was it looks Iberian carved. I found it in the swamp where that river leads to. I found this in Taunton, right up the Taunton River, from the 1600s. Some of the writing on the rock, the inscription, looks like 1600s Portuguese. I find it to be pretty interesting, except this isn't Portuguese. It's Spanish, I think, because it says Campeon on the side. Though I guess Portuguese and Spanish is kind of the same. I don't know. I wish, if anyone knows anything about ancient artifacts and stuff, or stuff from the 1600s, 1500s, you let me know, because no one from Antique Roadshow could tell me what that is. But anyways, like I said earlier, the language was Phoenician, Portuguese, American Indian, and Viking, and some other stuff, obviously. But it was an important marker for a lot of people that came through here, and eventually that would go up into the river and right into the heart of the Bridgewater Triangle Paranormal place. Right here, right where I'm at, right now, the heart of it, the swamp that everyone knows, the Hockomock Swamp, the swamp that we're going to talk about again today. We talked about it last week. But I just want to give you a little heads up about the stone. If you're interested in the Dighton Rock, please go check it out. You can type in Google right now, Dighton Rock, Berkeley, Massachusetts. And if you type in Dighton Rock, Berkeley, Massachusetts, it will bring you to a little island right in Taunton River as you come up from the Atlantic Ocean in Fall River, Mass. If you're familiar with the area, there's like the Battleship Cove is nearby. Fall River, very active place. You can go down there, get some sweetbread. You can get some awesome Portuguese sausages. You can get shot. It's great. It's a great place. Anyways, stay safe in Fall River. Anyways, but the boulder, another oddity. Now you're aware. All these weird oddities, ancient history that can't be explained right here in the swamp. That's not the only place. That's not the only rock that has petroglyphs carved into it that are very mysterious. And so when we're talking about weird paranormal locations that have strange connections, obviously with the first people that live there, and you want to hold up petroglyphs from something on the side of a wall in Utah, I suggest you look where it's been skipped over already. And what do you know? The rocks that have a lot of carvings on them are made of quartz. Quartz deeply related to weird plasma action in the sky. See the Condine Report or UAPstudy.com, where our buddy over there, Campbell Morera, has put together a lot of interesting stuff on plasma research when it comes to some of these locations. Swampy areas with aerosols over quartz, where Native Americans would probably, find multiple reasons to stay there, but literally base their communities around sites that would frequently have things like a display in the sky with strange lights. This book here, Salisbury, the Utah UFO display. The Inuit Basin. Strange morphing lights that are found frequently in the sky. No one can explain. Happens all the time. Is it geological? Is it plasma? Is it swamp gas? Whatever it is. Either way, what do you know? Same thing. Native American culture with great legends and lore of what they were. right here, and amazing oddities like the Dighton Rock. So if you're interested, please check out the Bridgewater Triangle. We're going to erase that name though. Anyways, we're moving on, folks. If you're interested in the Dighton Rock stuff, please check out ancientorigins.net. I don't know if you know that website. I don't know who they are, so I'm plugging them. I hope they're okay. But they have a pretty cool series of photographs of the original engravings of the rocks. Some of the casts of the engravings look remarkably old, older than anything that we would see with modern day writing of natives that we knew. They have nothing like it. Some people suspected that some of the writing from the natives might actually be of the red painted people that lived before. They were they just the first migrated family of natives that came from Asia? We don't know, but they buried all their dead with red ochre, and everything seems to be dumped with red paint all over it, including the bodies and all that stuff. So they called them the red painted people. It could be them. If you're interested, please go check out John Danforth's interpretation of the Dighton Rock and the petroglyphs, all from the 1800s all the way up to today. They're still talking about it. Super interesting. But next week, of course, I'll bring you another one. Maybe you'll be a guy that collects weird stories about little green people seen in New Hampshire. Maybe he's got a little factory. Maybe I'll bring you up to the Cryptozoology Museum in Maine. I won't do it because that guy's kind of... I'm just kidding. All right, let's move on. We are talking, of course, today about our recent trek into the Hockomock Swamp. Last week, we talked about my experiences that I've had there. Other people that have reported similar things. A woman that ran a horse barn that had literally 800 meters away from the famous bridge that someone built like 100 years ago, but for some reason that bridge is right prime area. I'm thinking maybe the rocks on that bridge itself might be quartz. They look like something else. I don't know. But I went into the swamp. I brought a camera live with me. One of the reasons why is because people had asked me, hey, I just saw a ghost hunting show, another show in the paranormal, something else, when they went there, and they were like getting attacked. They were being stalked by dark energy and hurt by native spirits and stuff. And I was like, what? We go here to like hang out and have like a relaxing time. It's like we go off by ourselves in this place and just get like lost and hang out in a rock. And it's like our relaxing place. And so I went there and I did it live, and I think people appreciated it. They told me, they were like, oh, it was portrayed to us on some of these programs like this, like it was some dark, awful place that you're going to get attacked by some sort of shape-shifting Native American, legend come to life. They didn't think it was dark at all. If you looked at what the Womponoag, the Massachusetts, the Algonquin Hole, the Mohegan, the Mohawk, the Patuxet, the Mashpee, Wampanoag, you ask them what they thought of the swamps around here. They were a haven. They protected them when the place is flooded. They always seem to have wildlife, including large, giant dino beavers, and they were in abundance of many things that kept them comfortable and safe. Oh, deer, ticks, and mosquitoes, but ultimately they kept them safe, and it was a great place to defend against because the English Puritans, well, they were pretty good at shooting stuff and fighting. They had Miles Standish. He was a tough little bastard, but that's a French word, bessard, which means swordsman. Anyways, they were not really jungle warfare specialists. They were not really swamp specialists. So the natives used to drag them in there or drag fights in there, and it wasn't great. They kind of had their way with them to some degree because it was just so easy to get them lost in the labyrinth that it was the place. But modern day times, no dark energy. Maybe there's a scary ghost in there. I've just never seen one, ever. Seen a lot of paranormal stuff, including like I like to talk to you about now. No, I didn't have some crazy experience. The experience lasted just seconds, in fact. As we're driving into the location, dead smack in the middle of the woman Linda's experience from the early 90s about the lights following her up the yard. And when I say this is a massive horse barn, they have $250,000 horses put in there, and is a standard minimum stalls. These are Olympic level horses and stuff, and it's right there in Bridgewater, and the lights chased her, and so it's right near there. And as we're driving in from the other side, and it's also where Chris Pittman, the author, wrote about his time where they thought these canoers were coming up the river, and in fact it ends up just being these lights that shifted and colors went everywhere, and they went back down the river. But as we're driving up, this orange light appears over the swamp to our left that's cut out, split down by the road. There's a swamp here between the highways, and then there's the path towards the bridge. And right there in front of us, this extremely bright orangey red light appears right at the tree level. So we can see the trees and the highway of Route 24. And there, sure enough, the light is in front of the trees. It's not a plane, because I said, look at this plane. It's coming right at us. It seems to be close. Then I saw it go beneath the trees and start moving from left to right. And it moved. It was like a baseball. It looked like a baseball of orange light. And it was in one place and very, very rigidly like shifted to another spot and popped up here, making a little line between it, and then it disappeared. Right as we're going into the swamp to film live to see if we can catch these lights. Of course, we weren't filming. Not that filming would have mattered anyways. What would it have done? Would the president have called me? Jeff Daniels going to call me and say, get the planes ready, we're going to go fight them or something? It's not going to, the video's not going to do anything. But it was impressive to me, to say the least, that this is still happening, because the guy I went with, his name is, he's like my guide. I called him as a joke, because him and his dad go there all the time to relax. Like, it's a relaxing place, but they've had very paranormal experiences. Just relax. Like, they just take it easy. They just go in there and sit down and rest and kind of just be an observer. And when they sense change around them, like all the other senses in your body, how they work, they just take note. And they've had some rather unique experiences, including seeing strange lights and like that, like we just saw. And so it was nothing crazy. After the 3 hours we spent in there, essentially, or two and a half hours we spent in there, it was nothing, we got a lot of deer tick on us. You know what deer ticks are? They're a nightmare. They're very small, so small that it's almost impossible to see. And you can't feel them walking on you. You just have to look for them. And they're, once you get one on you, likely you're going to get Lyme disease. Yeah, they're real pain. That's one of the worst parts about the place. In fact, they literally will cover you. Hordes of ticks. You want to talk about something paranormal and disgusting? Let's talk about deer ticks that are the size of the head of a needle. Barely. You can't see them. You can barely see them. I'm not talking about a regular tick. I'm talking about a very small Massachusetts deer tick. So that was the worst thing. Either way, we trudged through the swamp, went to multiple places. You can see that beavers have ripped the trees apart there to the point where it's dammed up all the river and causing all types of stuff. I find that to be rather interesting too. The worst I've ever seen it. The swamp is plugged up. There's very physical things happening with the biology there, the life there, flora and fauna, all that good jazz. And of course, when you plug up the rivers and things start flowing differently, you're releasing gases, natural organic aerosols are in the area, and those things can happen, And some of the stuff, the paranormal stuff that I've been kind of not, I don't know if I believe it, but it's, it's not impossible. And I was just talking to Race about this a little while ago, is that sometimes I feel there is something rather lifelike about what these lights do when they pop up. But they seem to pop up when there is heavy action, physically speaking, with the swamp. And I think seeing what I've seen there is pretty nuts. If you watch the episode over on our YouTube channel, you would have saw that, although it was pretty brutal sometimes with the video quality considering where we were, but they are essentially building in the swamp now. If I had a golf club and a ball, I probably could hit the back of houses that they're building on a location that was King Philip, aka Metacama, the famous Native American leader, his safe haven, if you will, this place that they existed and they lived in there, which is called, the Hockomock Swamp. I believe the term is where the spirits dwell, or something like that along that line. But it was pretty disturbing stuff. I talk about there's no such thing as dark energy in these places sometimes, or at least I simply don't feel it. My team, my friends, the people who are with me on these investigations don't ever seem to feel it. We get to see some stuff sometimes. We get to see. Maybe that's our fault. We can't feel as good as we can see. I don't know. But if you want to talk about dark energy, it's a sad one. I know I've spoken about it a lot on my show, so I don't give some people here, the same information twice, but all of these sites that are famous for these very visual, like UFO displays, like Salisbury wrote about the Inuit Basin up there by Skinwalker and stuff, right here in the Bridgewater Triangle, all of the famous sites have been destroyed. They're knocked over. They've been defecated on, literally. They've been spray painted over, trash everywhere, blown up, destroyed. The rocks that they were famous, like bowls carved in them, that who knows how far they go back, and for whatever reason, the giant quartz megalith-like structures they've set up here that look like Stonehenge in ways, and the ways they've placed them where they've been knocked over, destroyed. Yeah, that's dark energy to me. That's some negative stuff. Would you really want to be involved with that? Give a hand for the people of southeastern Massachusetts like to spend all their time telling everyone what to do in the world around them, but can't manage to pick up the trash on the ground in their own state or take care of the things that allegedly they find so near and dear. Was that too political? I don't know. This is a paranormal show. I mean, if there's a woman from here, a political type woman who goes around claiming that she's a Native American, you think that at least the Native American sites in Massachusetts that also happen to be linked deeply with the paranormal sites would be somewhat taken care of to some degree, but they're not. They've been, in fact, destroyed entirely. They're all gone. I went away for like 10 years and came back, 15 years and came back, and they were just decimated. There was literally a giant McDonald's symbol spray painted on Profile Rock. They used to have a giant Native American Indian face profile on it. The rock was used as a meeting point for all the tribes around. You could see all the areas and surrounding areas, including where military parties might come from. And it's been destroyed. The triangle still gives, though, folks. The Bridgewater Triangle still gives. There's still plenty of people. Experiencing things that are rather ridiculous, rather remarkable, rather interesting. There's still really weird things happening mentally. I don't know if I'm not talking about, the times or anything like that at all. I mean, there seems to be something that happens when you walk in these places. I know David Paulides of Missing 411 and others have contributed many works to the idea of it, and they've put together indirect and anecdotal evidence to suggest maybe there is something worth looking into. Regardless if there's other problems, there is something. And there's something about boulder fields. There's something unbelievable about when glaciers come through and they drop rocks the size of skyscrapers essentially in the ground. They drop rocks of all types all over the place. Some of those rocks, I'm guessing, probably magnetite and all types of weird Is it magnetite? What am I thinking of? Quartz and other magnetic rocks and things like that might produce rather specific anomalies or weird anomalies. I think they have a strange effect on the brain. And as you know, not all of it's true, but there are some things within contact modalities and things like that that do produce rather remarkably weird things. And it seems that just walking among the boulders oftentimes can trigger to some degree that. Not to mention just walking through the forest is rather hypnotic in general. There's nothing too geometrical. Buildings are easy to identify, trees and plants and loose stone are much harder they don't look the same on the other side as they do the other. It's not a street sign oftentimes. It's like when the water hits your back in the shower. Do you know what I'm saying? Grant Cameron and Desta Barnaby wrote about contact modalities along with Ray Hernandez of the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute. Just spit on my microphone, sorry, and then hit it. I apologize. They've put work forth that shows that at least a percentage of people that get inside some of these contact modalities to some degree or use them, manipulate them to some degree, have a rather remarkable talent of having strange experiences. But it seems often those experiences are rather personal, subjective. I can't tell, though, if you then trigger that type of stuff in a place that has lots of this rather interesting geological activity going on here or record here and what's here and what the natives were using, what they lived next to. And they sat there watching and experiencing all this stuff and they wrote about it and people were like, yeah, that's all legend. But I wonder what happens when you use contact modalities in a place that just already messes with your mind. Already allows your mind to go into places like where contact modalities puts them, and you suddenly start experiencing the super weird. We're going to take a break here right in about 50 seconds, I believe. Unless it's not on the video side. I'm not sure how it works over here yet. I haven't figured out the whole works. Ray, so we're taking a break in about 30 seconds. Sorry. Should have gave him a warning.
What?
You don't want me to spice it up. I get in trouble. I tried to calm it down. I tried to calm it way down.
We can take a break right now real quick.
folks. We'll be right back. Stick around.
If you want, I said. So it's up to you.
I will take a break if I can, real quick. I'm going to go grab a water, if that's all right.
All right, take off.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cats and kittens, and pooches and pound puppies, welcome back. I apologize for the technical difficulties we had there earlier. I didn't even realize it was happening. I didn't see the chat was going off. I didn't even, honest to gosh, look at me, I'm an amateur. What do you know? I've never even, I've not, what is radio? Anyways, Race informed me that we started the show off around 10, around the time where I was showing the Dighton rock photos, right? And that it might make sense if I at least say that in the beginning of the show we were talking about how from now on I'm going to bring you New England paranormal oddities, and one of them was the Bridgewater's own Dighton rock, which is a sacred stone of petroglyphs and other yada yada yada. You heard me rambling about other things like that. Other than that, we're caught up. I mean, you heard the rest of it.
Jeff, I had to come in and apologize. I'm sorry.
You're good, man.
It was my fault. I double-clicked the start button. It was my fault. I apologize. And I promised Dorothy and everybody in the chat room that I'll do better next time. I promise.
Well, you're punished, mister. All right, ladies and gents, simple stuff here. We're just going to break away, though. We could, of course, go on and on and on about the Bridgewater Triangle. There's endless stuff about it. And this is a New England paranormal. I'm trying to say not to say Bridgewater Triangle. Help me, Recon. Help me, please. Remind me. We're not going to use the term Bridgewater Triangle. We are remapping this whole thing. We're not going to erase half of the, New England's paranormal history just because one gentleman tried to coin and franchise the whole idea of it. Anyways, Jeanette Malibu, Dope Nose, Dorothy Hawkins, everyone in the chat that's here right now, I appreciate it. Hopefully, Lord Ludacris, my man, what's going on? Lord Ludacris, man, you got one awesome history. So does Dorothy Hawkins. Dorothy Hawkins, Race, you'd be interested to know. That is the person I was speaking about, who I found out live on the air. Their uncle was friends with the gentleman that started Nellis Air Force Base. He was running 2 different units over there after World War I, and the ranges, and then I developed it in Nellis after 1947. He's out. It goes very different directions. They start housing very secret test stuff from other countries. Very cool, interesting story. Serrated Grin. Everyone in the YouTube chat that's followed me over from my side on the on Strange Recon, thank you so much for being here and helping support the show. Do me a massive favor, Recon, if you could. Hit that like and subscribe to the NX Network. Share if you could. And remember, it's super helpful if you're listening on the audio side or something. If you could listen, rate, review wherever you are, not just for Recon, but for the NX Network. And there's a lot of decent programs over there. Go check them out. Of course, that's why they're on the NX Network. Lots of interesting paranormal stuff. I can't bring you all aspects of the paranormal. Who am I? I mean, I do know everything. That's why I do so well with the ladies. I know everything. A lady likes a guy that claims to know everything. That's how I get in trouble. Having someone stare at me right now and be like, you're an idiot. All right. Boys and girls, cats and kittens. Let's talk a little news in the paranormal, or in ufology, if you will. For all you Twitter heads out there, you know that Strange Recon takes a rather skeptical position. Now, for everyone who's about to have a heart attack from what I'm about to say, let's just hold on a second. But I don't believe Christopher Mellon. That's right. I don't think someone that has billions of dollars extra in cash and can do whatever they wanted on planet Earth actually cares to help poor people who are interested in the paranormal. I know. I'm saying something that's kind of annoying. I mean, Christopher Mellon, he's like the grand mantis of this whole thing. He's the he's helping push for what everyone wants. He's helping push for disclosure. But after watching a recent interview with Mr. Mellon and how unbelievably predictable his answers were, I am more convinced than ever that these people so deeply involved. Now, I'm not talking about the people that want to help and have not been asked to help, or been asked, but in some sort of minor way. But I'm talking about the people that are running this operation of disclosure. And when I'm not talking about the individuals that have decided to help as well because they believe in the cause, and that just like myself, I feel like I've been manipulated slightly. And that's just my own opinion, of course. This is not the opinion of everyone else. This is my own Jeff White Bear Kingeberry opinion, Turd Ferguson, Kitchener Leslie's opinion. I'm watching the interview that he gives. I spoke it on a little bit on the show today, so sorry for the repeat information. Does anyone else out there believe that it's suspicious that a person that once lobbied for long-range wireless charging of things, that is now pushing for technology that's alien to come out, or ET possible tech hidden away by the private sector in these core secret type stuff from ufology? I don't believe that a lot of it's completely off. I just think the context of the tech they're talking about is Christopher Mellon in 2007, 8, and 9, Mellon Strategic Consulting. I'm sorry for the repeat information for those that listened to the show this morning. This gentleman, at one point in his career, was helping lobby for a ridiculously small amount of money, which is suspicious in itself, lobby for this technology. We know that technology is deeply related to the development of extremely exotic technology. What do I mean by that? Let's put our pretendy time caps on. Let's stay rational, but talk about something irrational. Let's use logic, but talk about something very illogical. Ready? Here we go. Strap in, folks. Imagine an aircraft that never has to land or refuel, does not require other aircraft, doesn't fly off traditional propulsion, and basically could be charged and kept in the sky 24 hours a day without the use of classic things like lighter than air methods of dirigibles, rigid dirigibles, hot air balloons, things like that. Doesn't have to be an ion wind technology that lives very next to alien. We've spoken about it on Strange Recon for a long time now. Multiple military branches have tested it and are using it to some degree. We have no idea what its use is or where it originated from, but it's transmitting power long range, wirelessly, KFC style, frying those birds if they flew through. I don't know if that's true, but the idea is that you were going to be able to transmit power long range, even off the surface of the planet if you wanted to, and then catch it somewhere and store it, including air assets. What do I mean by air assets? Now, I'm talking on the NX network right now, not Strange Recon. So I'm going to pretend for a second here. I'm not going to pretend that everyone knows where I'm going with this, but if you know the story of, say, Paul Benowitz and Rick Doty and all that, and the history of alleged secret ET tech being used and developed, you'll watch the timeline, and the timeline seems to play out pretty well here, that these airborne assets have been developed in secret for years. And then since we had no adversary that we needed them on, the Soviets fell a little while ago now, folks. I'm not sure if you're aware. The Soviets were our nearest competitor. Now China obviously is, but the Soviet Empire fell. We didn't have anyone to use our fanciest weapons we once told the world we needed to get ready to use, including drones, including electric propulsion, including materials that withstand the traditional expectations that people would see when re-entry vehicles, thermodynamics and stuff like that. And one of the technologies or capabilities involved with some of these things is being able to stay aloft forever. What are the 5 observables? You know, the 5 observables have been pushed in your face on the news and every podcast and radio show, print media, and everything else you possibly could. The 5 observables that the ATIP crew went around talking about for a long time, or the OSAP crew. The one of these technologies, other than direct energy weapons and permanent lift, all that stuff, is transferring power or being able to charge drones from a remote location, charge an aircraft from a remote location, even charging drones from your aircraft you're flying that has the ability to produce power and then send it to the drone surrounding you, the swarm you're controlling. We're going to get deep into that one day, I'm sure, because we don't always just talk about Bridgewater Triangle stuff. Some of the stuff that we talk about right here on the show, of course, is that of the advancement through wireless thought communication and stuff. We hear a lot of people in the paranormal talk about their abduction experiences and stuff with the technologies like the craft was alive, or they were controlling it with their mind and things like that. Well, that's what humans do now. Humans control drone swarms with their mind. Look at Navy pilots today. The point is that wireless communication or wireless charging of stuff being lobbied for by Mellon back in the day without a single word of ET popping up anywhere seems remarkably suspicious. That same technology is being developed and worked on today, except it's not being called ET, but it's also part of the story of keeping drones aloft forever. You know, it just seems to me that these people are not talking about ET technology. They're talking about technology that is very real, but is being kept away from the public, because once it's in the public, it's also in the hands of the Chinese. It's not necessarily easy to engineer some of the things that you can theoretically prove. Obviously, we've seen that. The Chinese are a threat, unfortunately. But it's, you know, they've invested in other things like electronic countermeasures far more than the physical ability to fight a war with the United States. It's just unfortunate that these people have taken the angle of manipulate the experiencer and the witness of the real paranormal in order to fulfill an agenda. I mean, let's be real, folks. If you really had a passion to crack all this stuff and you had a spare couple billion in a bank account, you don't think you could dedicate it to buy a fancy camera on your TV show, a real camera, or a you know, dedicating something to create an office of legitimacy that brings to light what you're talking about, rather than demanding taxpayers fund your projects. I have a short term left here. I don't believe Christopher Mellon and these other individuals as well, because you can lobby without lobbying. You can go on the news and shows and push disclosure and all that stuff every single day while pushing what some people don't seem to get. The idea that there's an unknown threat that requires capital, money to investigate and stop. It's not a science threat. It's not a science thing. We need money in the national security aerospace world to stop this thing that we can only promise you about, that we also believe is the same thing you guys are talking about. Anyways, I just don't buy it. I'm sorry. If they produce something awesome, but I don't even know what it would be at this point that would make me believe it, because what has happened is that our own technology has become indistinguishable from that of, say, a NICAP investigation of Desvergers or whatever from Palm Meadow, Florida, Palm Springs, Florida, who sees a UFO, hits him with a direct energy weapon. A hovering, silent, kind of sounds like electric aircraft hits him with a direct energy weapon. These technologies are the technologies we're talking about. I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry, I just got an alert here. We got 3 minutes left. Recon. It's time for me to smooze you. I'm done rambling about not believing Christopher Mellon, that melon farmer. No, I personally don't believe a billionaire gives a god dang about poor people's problems. And anytime you ever hear about someone wanting to do something for some objective reason, you look into their past and you say, oh, you've been trying to get technology out for years. You never mentioned it being ET before. You literally lobbied. You had a lobbying company to get politicians to get military technology out to corporate. Is anyone else sniffing the bullcrap here? Are you deep enough in it? It's just, in my mind, there's statements about being ET secrets being locked up in the private sector. That's a very easy way to manipulate the context, you know? What if we've been calling our own tech ET? I still think aliens are here watching us, for God's sakes. That's the type of person I am. I just literally mean, what if a cover story is, hey, we're going to call these bombers or spy planes we created, or new spy blimps or radar or communication relays, we're going to call them UFOs if anyone sees one or if it crashes anywhere, okay? We're going to call it a recovery. All these years later, we got people still using that context. Look at the Wilson Davis notes. You tell me if those notes actually show any evidence of ET stuff. As far as I'm concerned, we've already called our own technology ET. So therefore, if you see a government document or notes or something alleged attached to that stuff, how do we know we're not talking about our own technology? Satellite crashes. It's called the Reentry Recovery Team or Recovery Team. Russian spy tech drops in our country. We pick it up. We don't want to tell anyone they're operating a nuclear thing in the sky over our country. We had to recover it. We easily can manipulate the context to make it seem like what we've recovered or what technology we want to know about is alien or ET, the unknown threat. Werner von Braun, Dr. Carol Rosen, do your research. We'll get back next week and talk about it for sure. We have 1 minute left, folks. I'm sorry. That's the end of the show. I got to wrap it up, my friends and weirdos. That's the end of it. Dorothy, I'm sorry I didn't get to the chats today. Jeanette Malibu, Dope Nose. I apologize to everyone. Lord Ludacris, I didn't get to answer the chats. I will get it next time. Dorothy, I see somebody. Okay. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, please do me a massive favor. You know what I always say? Look for things how it actually is rather than how it appears to be. A lot of these people would like it to appear to be one way forever. And then you do a little research and you find out, oh, it's very different. Also, you keep it weird and you keep your third eye peeled. Up next, right here on the X, Jimmy Church. Stay tuned. Thank you very much, Recon. Take it easy.